Hi, I'm Scott Elliott, and welcome to Franchise Spotlight. It's a series where we take a thoughtful look at franchise opportunities that deserve closer consideration. And today I'm spotlighting Prism Specialty Restoration. It's a franchise brand that operates in a niche that most people don't realize exists until they need it. Prism focuses on specialty restoration services. They work alongside insurance carriers, adjusters, restoration professionals to restore high value and often irreplaceable items when loss events occur. Now, to help us explore and really understand what all this means, to understand Prism, I'm joined by Jamie Lavigne, who's the Director of Franchise Development for Prism Specialty Restoration. Jamie, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Scott. You did that so well. That was so eloquently said.
Wow.
Good work.
I appreciate that. That's great. Well, I've been all into this brand for the last week. I just been studying up on it, and I'm really excited by it. So I can't wait to dive in deeper with you today. So let's start with the most simple, basic question that people want to know: what is this concept, and who does it help? Who's the customer for Prism Specialty Restoration?
I am really excited to answer this question and do it in a creative way as well. So Prism Specialty Content Restoration is focusing on the contents of somebody's home or business when disaster strikes.
Okay.
So disaster could be category disaster like your hurricanes and fires and tornadoes, those types of things.
Hmm.
Or it could be from a fire, just a house fire or business fire or flood, that type of stuff. So
Okay.
we are the second company, the second mitigate. We're not mitigation. We're the second company called to take care of the contents, right? So you
Okay.
have your mitigation restoration franchisees of the world that we work with, but they're the first one to be called to mitigate that water, that fire damage immediately. We're the
Mhm.
second company called to help with the contents, the stuff that's inside, whether it's somebody's home or somebody's business. So
Mm.
here's my example of what I want to be creative. I want you to think of yourself, Scott, coming home from a family vacation and
Okay.
your pipe burst and your house has been flooded. Think about what could be floating in water that you would like to be saved, right?
I don't want to think about that, but I
You
I
don't
got the
want to
visual.
think about
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
So I think about this often.
Mm.
And so, for a while I've been talking to people about my Nana's Bible, which is really important
Mm.
to me. But I was going through and putting stuff away the other day, and I came across this box. Okay. And
Okay.
it's just like it looks like a Christmas box, right?
Yeah, it does.
But
It's a big
what
box.
I have inside are these little booties with these socks and this little
Mhm.
outfit. Look at this.
Oh
This little
my.
ruffle butt and the
Oh,
little
oh.
coat, Gap hoodie, and a
Little
little
baby Gap
hat.
hoodie.
This is the outfit that my daughter Stella came home in from the
Oh.
hospital. And then I have this one. This is the outfit that my daughter Malia came home from the hospital with her little
Mm.
bunny ear hat and her little booties and stuff like that.
Mhm.
If this was floating in water, I want it to be saved. I
Mhm.
don't want to lose these items. I want to pass these down. I'm gonna have to. They're all messy now. I'm gonna have to refold that.
Oh, that's it.
But
That's it.
I want to be able to pass these things, little booties, down to my daughters, Malia
Yeah.
and Stella, when they have their babies, or
Mhm.
to for them to look at and be like, "Oh my gosh, I used to be this small." So, I mean,
Yeah.
this is very, very
Replacement value isn't very valuable on a Gap, hoodie for a baby if it's not your actual original.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I like to say is that Prism Specialty Restoration replaces memories that or restores memories that can't be replaced, right?
Okay.
And that's
Yeah.
just one aspect though, right? So if there is that flood and you go in, we're going to take care of the contents. So that is textiles, like things like clothing and shoes and rugs. There's people have rugs that have a lot of meaning to them that were
Mhm.
passed down from generation.
Sure.
We're taking care of the electronics. Now, electronics don't really have a lot of memorable value to them, possibly, unless it was a record player or something like that. But, we're doing things like the dishwashers and the refrigerators and the stoves. And then we're doing art. And art can have a lot of, value to it that is
For
nostalgic.
sure.
Because
Yeah.
it could be a painting that your great grandfather did. It could be old photos like these, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
That are floating that you want saved. Or it could be figurines, and they could have a lot of value, like a Hummel figurine, all the way to barely any value, but it's valuable to that person, right?
Hmm.
Or
Yeah.
even better art, like I've got an impressionist painting right behind me, right? And that's just a print, but it could be a more expensive real one.
Yeah.
So that's what we do is we're taking care of that content that's inside the home or the business. And that's important to understand too, is that we do this for the residential and commercial. So it could be a dentist office, a machine shop, etc. We're taking care of all the contents.
Okay. Yeah, no, that really helps, Jamie, to set the stage because when we say restoration business, all what you talked about at the very beginning, the people who get the first call, that's what most people think, right? How do you restore the actual, facility, the house or the building or whatever? And so now you're talking about this second tier, the second layer, if you will, um, arguably more important long term, right? The memories that go with it. But why does this distinction matter? Do you think to a franchisee, like somebody who's considering to get into the restoration space? Why might it be interesting for them to take the specialty restoration as opposed to considering a frontline restoration concept?
There's a couple of answers to that. The first one that comes to mind is the feel good vibes of it, right?
Hmm.
You can get that still with the first layer, the mitigation,
Sure.
but there's just something a little bit more special about saving people's items that they can't be replaced, right?
Hmm.
So it's feeling good about how they're making money, helping to, turn people's lives upside that have been turned upside down, try to make it right again. So
Yeah.
there's that aspect of it. It's also the aspect is the work-life balance. In the mitigation industry, you're on call 24/7.
Mm.
In ours, you're not. You might get a phone call in the middle of the night, but because we're call number 2, it's not a rush to get out the
Mhm.
door. You like the odds of you having to get out of your pajamas if you get that call are very, very low, right?
Mhm.
So because our restoration, majority of it, you do what we call a pack out of all those items and bring it back to your warehouse. You're working on those items Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So it
Okay.
gives a much better work life balance. And then there's more revenue streams to it because of the packing out, the restoration and the storing until it goes back. But I think one of the even bigger ones is the fact that there's not as much competition on the content side as there is on the mitigation side.
Yeah.
So, and there's some more to it as well, like the national accounts and the business that we get from those people, that we can
Mhm.
dive into later if you'd like.
No, yeah, and we will for sure. And I like the point you brought out about the competition because I think a lot of people, who are paying attention in their community, when they hear restoration, they can name a handful of companies locally that are doing restoration. And I
Yep.
know personally, in working with several clients who want to be in the home services space or even the business to business space, they th- that's a barrier for them. They don't want to be in what they consider to be a saturated market. And no matter how much we say
There's enough business for
there's enough
everyone.
business for everybody, the niche element of this that we're talking about the contents as opposed to the restoration that everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
Are there many competitors in this space, or are there competitors in this space, or like what do you see nationally in most markets?
Yeah, there are some competitors. And there
Mhm.
is competition, but again, going back to there's enough business for everybody. It's
Mhm.
just not even close to the same volume as it is for mitigation. It's a
Right.
much smaller amount. And we're one of the ones that have been around longer than some of the new guys on the street.
Okay.
And because of our art restoration, that gives us a little bit more niche than some of our competitors. And then, of course, the fact of because we have been around since the 90s, we've created these real, actual national accounts that our franchisees actually get real business from. Let's face it, in franchising, you'll hear the word national accounts, and there's national accounts, and then there's really like national accounts that the franchisor really helps to
Mhm.
bring to life and
Yeah.
actually bring the franchisee's business. That's what happens here. So yes, competition, but it is not as much as most businesses.
Mhm.
Even the mitigation franchisees, some of them have the ability to do content restoration and choose not to. They
Hmm.
just want to stay in that mitigation space because it has a little bit more space requirements and equipment requirements and stuff, and they just want to stay in this wheelhouse over here.
Yeah, yeah, specialization is good, right? It really, helps add value in the value chain. So that's
Mhm.
terrific. Now, thank you for that. So let's talk a little bit about who succeeds in this type of concept. I know the business has been around for many years now. What types of people are thriving with Prism Specialty Restoration, and what are the skills that matter most? And maybe even comment a little bit about who might not be a fit, right? If somebody can self-select out themselves, save themselves some time and hassle, that would be good too.
I love that. Exactly. I love that self-admit. This is somebody the people that are really succeeding are the ones that really get the concept of sales and networking.
Mhm,
Now, sales in this business is very different than sales in, say, like the brand I work with called the Seals. It is more of a old school networking concept, right?
mhm,
Because the people you're selling to is the contractors, which are the franchisees of ServPro, Paul Davis, 911 Restoration, all of them.
mhm,
That's your number one person that you're selling to, as well as insurance companies. So how do you sell to these people? You go golfing with them. You
mhm,
go to chamber events with them. You take
mhm,
them to lunch. It's old school networking, right?
mhm,
So we need somebody that really understands how to build relationships with people. So, for instance, this is totally unrelated, but it's the same concept. I'm an identical twin sister. Not everybody knows this. And she's an insurance, she has her own insurance agency. First thing
okay.
she did when she got into insurance, she bought herself a set of golf clubs and learned how to golf. And now she thinks she's a pro. She's not, but she thinks she's a pro, and she's got a guy for everything. I got you. You
Mhm,
need a roofer. I got a guy. You need this. I got a guy.
mhm,
You have to have that same mentality. You're going to build relationships, not just with your contractors and the insurance companies, but you're
mhm,
building relationships with the roofers, with the plumbers and stuff like that, because you all work together as one team and you want people to like, trust, and respect you because then they're going to want to do business with you. So that's who we need is somebody that is a servant leader and really gets that sales approach and networking.
mhm,
And then the second side of it is an operational perspective, right? Logistics, etc. But
mhm,
who do we not want is the people that really don't understand that first part. Ultimately, if you are a shy guy, a shy person, I should say,
mhm,
and you're a severe introvert, you are required to hire a salesperson, but you still have to be able to participate and manage that person. And if you just don't have that ability, it's not going to go well for you. So that's who
yeah,
I would say is if you're that severe introvert that does not like to walk up and shake someone's hand and say hi
mhm.
and have a burger or beer or a round of golf, like probably not going to succeed. There's exceptions to every rule, obviously, Scott, but
Of course, sure. But I really appreciate your transparency on that because if a fundamental, skill that your most successful franchisees have is networking and getting to know people, making sure that the community is familiar with them, because familiarity is how they're going to, be the call when that second call needs to be made. No, I appreciate that. I think that's definitely a good litmus test for a potential owner of this type of concept. So that's great. Let's talk about what ownership looks like. There's owner operators who are in the business every day. Some people love to be executive leaders. They think about growing and scaling, just managing managers. We always hear the term semi-absentee, people who want to put money into a business and then let the managers run it. Talk to us about the role, the lifestyle that the successful Prism Specialty Restoration franchisees have, and what maybe a little bit about the typical day in the life.
So most of our franchisees own multiple territories, and
Okay.
some of them are very hands off and have management in place, but they had to earn that right?
Mhm.
Semi absentee out the gate doesn't work in this business model. We are looking for owner operators, and then they can earn their right to semi-absentee, right?
Mhm.
And then what semi-absentee looks like might mean they're just focused on a territory or whatnot, right? But we don't want anybody semi-absentee out the gate unless, and there's always these little exceptions that are
Okay.
made,
What are
right?
those
And,
exceptions
and
here? Yeah.
yeah, so if they already have multiple, like I'm working with a candidate right now that has 80 Anytime Fitness franchises. That's
Mhm.
somebody that obviously knows how to handle an operational more complexities, and we would allow somebody who has that type of background
Mhm.
to do so. But out the gate otherwise, they need to be owner operator. They're going to be required, I said this earlier, to hire a salesperson right away.
Mhm.
But their goal is, their typical lifestyle is Monday through Friday. They're getting up in the morning and making sure the team showed up,
Mhm. Mhm.
going at working with their salesperson on, hey, you go meet these people, I'll go meet these people, and managing those people. But it's typically a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday thing. Will you work on weekends to a golf tournament every once in a while? Yeah.
Mhm.
And so forth. But it really depends on how big and how they want to scale. But most of our franchisees own more than one territory.
Okay.
So this is a big business. And we already have multiple franchisees that have already passed their business down to their children, actually.
Okay.
So we have second generation franchisees of their parents owning the business in our system already. That's how, so we're not an emerging brand, but I like to make sure people understand we're a re-emerging brand because there has been some changes.
Okay. Well, yeah, I want to that strikes my curiosity, so I want to talk about that. But let's back up for a second because you talked about the owners checking to make sure the team shows up, and with a concept like specialty restoration. When I first heard it, the things that went through my mind is, how am I going to find an art restorer? Do I need some PhD in 15th century art or what? Like, how do I find the people to do this? Talk to us a little bit about what does the team look like when you start, what the team looks like when you're mature, and a bit about what you're looking for in your teammates.
Yeah, and I think that's an important question because it's probably one of the questions that I get asked the most from candidates. They have the
So
same
it wasn't
concept
just
you
me
have.
then. Okay, everybody
No,
wonders
and it
this.
was
Okay.
me too. When I was
Yeah.
asked to go on this brand, I was like, man, how hard is it to find these people? It's not what you think.
Okay.
So a new franchisee coming in today is going to buy all the service lines, textiles, electronics, and art. And then we
Okay.
have documents as well, but we don't, that is just a kind of a tag along thing. It's a little bit of a dying breed service line. So
Okay.
people are going to typically start with textiles. Although we just awarded a candidate that's going to do textiles and electronics at the exact same time because he really wants to launch fast. But textiles is just a any day person could be hired to do textiles because all it is doing laundry.
Okay.
Really,
Okay.
right? You're
Yeah.
buying a commercial washer and dryer in what's called a hydroxyl machine. Hydroxyl
Mhm.
machine, you put in a like a closet sized room or small office and you hang the clothes or textiles to remove the smell from them, like the
Okay.
smoke smell or any of that. And then they get washed. Now, if it's a dry clean only, you partner with a dry cleaner, you send that off. If they have furs, you send them to a furry, which I'd never
Mhm.
heard of before, but they
I didn't didn't know
list.
that was a word. Okay, good
I
to
didn't
know.
either. I don't
Mhm.
even know if I said it correctly. But you need somebody that can just put clothes in the washer and dryer and fold them, hang them up, and be organized. That's
Yeah.
probably the most important skill set is being organized because you got to make sure they're keeping track of everything. The second person is a tech electrical person, which is more of a handyman. So
Okay.
this is for somebody that's not afraid of wires and knows how to replace some motherboards and circuit breakers and stuff like that.
Okay,
And
so
then
more
the third,
electronics than like an electrician.
yeah,
Is that
that's what I meant to say,
okay?
electronics, exactly. So
Okay.
it's
Okay. No, good. Thank
electronics.
you.
They're
Mhm.
working with, the dishwashers, but it could be a machine from a machine shop, right? And there's a
Mhm.
motherboard that has smoke all over it and dust, and they have to go in and clean it and stuff. And there may be some circuits that need to be replaced and stuff like that. So and then the last one is the art person. And with art, there's two levels. There's level one and level two. And that was the one that had me befuddled. Like, how do you find this person? And
Mhm.
so I was talking to this gentleman on our team, which was the second Prism franchisee ever for our system. He has since sold the business and is part of our team. And he said, well, Jamie, do you know anybody that has an art degree that does nothing with it? And I was like, yeah, me. And he's like, you have an art degree? I'm like, yeah, I went to school. I have a 4-year college degree. Yeah, I was going to be an art teacher. And then I fell into
Mhm.
sales along the way and said, I'd rather do better, make more
Yeah.
money here than,
Yeah.
painting pictures with
I
high
understand.
schoolers.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but he's like, Jamie, what were your mediums? I said, I did photography, drawing, and painting. He's like, I could teach you how to restore art. I was like, you could? He's like, yeah, we teach you. And that's what's cool is
Mhm.
we teach we train the textile, the electronics, and the art person. We
Okay.
do all the training for it. It's a
Mhm.
1 week training program. So and then the gentleman, Jeff, he's like, do you know anybody else like you? And I was like, I know a lot of people like me.
Yeah.
And I don't even have to have a college degree, right? I know
Mhm.
plenty of people that just do art, right?
Mhm.
They're good at it. It's not rocket science what we
Mhm.
do. It's just they need to learn certain techniques and there's
Mhm.
level one and level two. So you
Mhm.
hire somebody that will start at level one and then as they progress, they go through level two training. Boom. Easy
Okay.
peasy. It's really not
And
as
the
difficult as it sounds.
differentiator between level 1, level 2, is it just the complexity of the work they do, or what is that?
Right. It is the complexity. Like, so
Mhm.
going into if it was a famous, a really nice oil painting, you have to
Mhm.
learn certain techniques with that so that you're
Okay.
not lifting the paint off of the painting and stuff like that. Certain
Gotcha. Okay.
chemicals and stuff that you have to use and stuff like
Got it.
that. So
Okay.
yeah, but we offer all the training for your
Mhm.
technicians as a franchisee. So boom, we're going to make it more simple for you. But
Yeah,
a
well, that's high
fully
value. Mhm. Mhm.
yeah, so a fully, I like to say our item 19 for the current FDD, which is the numbers from 2024, average franchisee that has two service lines or more does over 1.6 million and the average size team is 5.
Okay. Okay.
And that
Yeah.
5 employees. Now, some of them are going to have more if they have, we have a couple of franchisees that have territories in multiple states. So they have some teams in each one of those territories, right?
Mhm.
But that's basically 5 approximately per territory, right?
Okay.
And when you need to do commercial jobs, which are bigger jobs, you use a temp agency for those situations to
Okay.
hire in for more laborers, etc.
And the training needed for your temp workers, is that something that you as the franchisee, you have your employees do the training of the temp agency? Is that
Yes.
how it works, the
Yep.
temp work? Okay.
Yep.
That's
But
good.
you're also using a specialized temp agency, not just, everyday Joe Schmoes.
Okay.
But yes, it's
Got it.
a combination of both. So
All right.
most of the temp agencies are going to hire people or bring on people that have some kind of experience in that role,
Mhm.
to an extent.
Okay. Now, when we were discussing this last week, Jamie, and I was thinking about somebody getting started in this business. Maybe they just have their first 1 or 2 employees, and now a bigger job or maybe a more complex job comes up. It's the first one ever. As a new business owner, you might be a little gun shy, like, how do I do this? Like, You told me a little bit about how the franchise network works together, and I would love you to tell that story because I think it really puts a lot people's minds at ease about taking on those bigger jobs even early.
Yeah. It's one of the great things about a brand like ours, it being bigger. And it's not emerging. So we
Mhm,
only have a handful, right? We have quite a few franchisees across the entire country that support each other and help each
mhm,
other out. So, for example, a franchisee could take on an art, job and can only really handle a certain percentage of that art job because maybe their art tech doesn't have level 2 training.
mhm,
So they can work with another franchisee to subcontract that level 2 artwork out of,
mhm,
or vice versa with commercial. So the new franchisee that we just awarded, it's going to take him a minute to get up and running. If he gets a commercial job that it's too out of his control, he can call a franchisee nearby to come in and assist,
mhm,
with him or subcontract. And how they handle that, whether they do it as a referral fee or whatever, they work it together and learn hands on.
mhm.
They can navigate that together.
Yeah, the owners
But
can work out the details, but I
yeah,
think that the testament there is that the fact that this brand has been around for many years, there's a lot of experience both at headquarters, but also in the franchisee world. So there are resources available to help you grow and scale as you're learning. So and
yep.
until you become the one that other people are relying on, right? So that's good.
Exactly. They, and of course, it's not 100% kumbaya, just like in any system, there's going to be
Sure.
outliers and stuff like that. But these guys come together and really support each other, and
Mhm,
help each other out. In August of 25, I went to a 2-day summit where one franchisee out of North Carolina bought this. I'm not even going to try to say the name, but it's like forensic science stuff, that he
mhm,
paid a lot of money for, and everybody else is going to want it. But he's like, hey, if you don't want to spend the money right now,
mhm.
I'll send you send me the swab and I'll test it for you. I won't charge you.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, wow, nice.
that's
Yeah, yeah,
camaraderie, right?
yeah.
That's like team, all ships rise, right? And that's one of
Mhm,
the beautiful sides of franchising is
mhm,
when you get into a system, one of the reasons why someone should want to consider franchising is that it's not just the support you get from HQ, it's support you get from your sorority and your fraternity of brothers and
mhm.
sisters, right?
Yeah, yeah. In
So
the good
that definitely
systems,
helps.
that's what you see, right? In the good systems.
Yes.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's great.
100%. Hmm.
Cool. Well, talk to me a little bit about the resilience and the risks of this type of being a part of this category. It seems like something that should perform well during market downturns and maybe during pandemics or other things. But when we think about AI, we think of automation, we think of digital disruption. Yeah, how is specialty restoration positioned in the face of those types of headwinds, if you will?
I mean, I think it's incredibly well, it's going to do well. No matter what the economy is, no matter what's going on in technology,
Mhm,
a fire is still going to happen. A
mhm,
hurricane is still going to happen. A tornado, people's pipes are going to freeze, right? Like
mhm,
people are still going to accidentally burn their house down because they deep fried a turkey on the back porch, right? They're
mhm.
still going
Oh,
to
yeah.
accidentally, garages are going to catch on fire from these electric vehicles and stuff like that. At the end
Mhm,
of the day, AI cannot fix people's contents, right?
mhm,
There can be machines that I guess do things, but it's still going to take humans to work with the insurance companies and all that other stuff. And that's also, I think, one of the important pieces of this is that you don't have to worry about whether a customer can pay the bill.
okay.
That's what the insurance company comes into play,
Mhm,
and that's why when we look at territories, we're not looking at the average household income. It doesn't matter. We're looking
mhm.
at the total households for opportunity because
See, yeah.
as long as there's an insurance in place, then that's a potential customer. And it's not just households, it's the businesses as well, because this is considered a B2B business. So again, when you have candidates that are people that you're working with that are really kind of risk adverse, this brand should hopefully bubble up to the top because it covers those check boxes
Hmm.
of the risk aversion. So the hardest part about it ultimately though is the insurance company process. From what I've seen from working with candidates, like, and I wasn't expecting this, that I was like, hey, insurance company pays awesome. But some people are like, well, how long does it take? And
Hmm.
that, and I was like, oh, that's a, honest,
Fair question.
concern.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's a fair question. And so it can take a while to get paid back by the insurance companies. And so there's a few things that franchisees can do. First and foremost, they have to be prepared for that and make sure that they have enough working capital to cover certain jobs. But they also have to be smart enough to ask the insurance company for payments along the way
Okay.
instead of
Yeah. So
waiting
just
to the
structuring.
end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And,
Yeah.
and so, but and so franchisees in the past have had a problem with that because they were too afraid to ask, right?
Mm.
I love the Wayne Gretzky thing. You lose 100% of the shots you don't take, right? If
Mhm,
you don't
mhm.
ask, they're not going to say yes. But
You
in
mean they're not
most
gonna
cases,
volunteer to pay you earlier if you don't ask?
no, they're
Interesting.
not going to
Oh, go
volunteer.
figure.
So you've got to
Yeah.
be willing to ask
Yeah.
for it when you're structuring the proposal. Here's
Mhm,
our proposal. We'd like a third up front, a third in the
mhm,
middle, a third at the end, or I
mhm,
would like a weekly, check or a biweekly check of what we've done in,
mhm,
so forth. So there's lots of ways. Worst case scenario, the insurance company's going to say no, or they'll come back and say, well, we're willing to do this. Okay,
mhm,
great. So that's, first is make sure you always have some kind of opportunity of some working capital for those situations, especially big commercial jobs. Two is to ask for it.
mhm.
And then three is we have a vendor that's called All Talents, where you can actually hire this person from All Talents, which is hiring somebody from Nigeria for anywhere between very, very low cost, like
Mhm.
14 to $20,000 a year,
Mm.
that is been trained to just work with the insurance companies on making
Oh,
sure all I's are dotted and T's are crossed, etc.
okay.
So that you can take that stuff off your plate and let somebody who is specifically trained in dealing with insurance companies. So
Alright.
there's lots of ways to navigate that, but it is at the end of the day, it is something important that the insurance company will pay, but you just have to be prepared that it doesn't happen like that. But you also get to charge multiple ways. You charge for the pack out of taking the stuff out of the house. Then you
Okay.
do the proposal,
Mhm,
and because you get a pre-approval for a pack out, every insurance company knows that you're going to have to pack it out. Then you do the inventory and you do a proposal, and that gets sent to the insurance company. And there may be a little back and forth about approved or not approved, etc. And that's when you work out those details. Then you restore. And
mhm,
then you store, because so you put these on a shelf somewhere in your warehouse because likely the building's not ready yet.
mhm,
Now, in some cases, if it's residential, they can usually take their textiles back right away, but
mhm.
their electronics and their other stuff maybe not, right? So
Okay.
you get to charge for that storage
Mhm,
as it's sitting there, and that's something you work in the deal. Like every 3 to 6 months, you're saying, "Oh, I here's an invoice for another 3 months of storage and stuff like
mhm.
that," and they typically pay that along the way.
Okay. So it sounds like the franchisee's not putting themselves at risk on the chance that items can't be restored. There's revenue around the pack out. They do the proposal. Anything that can't be restored, anytime you've sunk into packing it out and assessing it, you are getting paid for that expertise. And
Mhm.
then what you can restore, you do, because I think insurance companies really love restoration instead of buying new, right? That seems like a better
Saves them
approach.
money. Yeah,
Yeah, saves
yeah,
them money.
yeah.
And okay, and then what can be restored is restored, and then to your point,
But you
stored.
get
So okay.
approved first, right? You
Hmm.
get it approved first. You're not going to work on stuff without an approval. Once you
Hmm.
have an approval, you're good to go. And
Yeah.
then there's another line of revenue that doesn't get always talked about, but you know, the place where we're getting most of our business are from the contractors. Like I said, Paul Davis and Serve Pro, their
Hmm.
equipment goes bad. We can fix their equipment for them. It's another revenue stream that our
Oh, okay.
franchisees do. So think
Yeah.
of those giant, all of us have seen these giant dehumidifiers that they pull out,
Hmm.
right? Those things have to get fixed every once in a while. I was visiting a franchisee's location. He had a ton of them. I was like, what's going on? He's like, yeah, they were fixing them. It's their
Wow. Okay.
equipment, or they fix
Yeah.
not just that, there's other equipment too that they can, work with. And they can either charge for it or they can do it as a, hey, you gave me business, I'm helping you kind of thing.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
but that's up to them to decide.
Yeah. No, that's a great picture. I appreciate that. Let's dive in a little bit. We've talked about the labor force, which is an investment, of course, and then warehousing, maybe some commercial washer dryer stuff. Talk to a little bit about the investment here. I know you have publicly disclosable information, but what should a franchisee think about when they're considering a Prism Specialty Restoration franchise?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier re-emerging brand, and so I'm
Mhm.
going to bring that up in conjunction to your question because
Great timing.
um, Prism Specialty Restoration started as a company called ERS, where they just started off with one service line, and then they created another service line, and then they created another service line. So then it was rebranded to Prism. But same concept is that every franchisee would just buy one service line at a time. Now that Eversmith Brands purchased Prism and we've rebranded to Prism Specialty Restoration, we are trying to encourage all our franchisees to have all service lines. Because how ridiculous is it if you go to a job and say, I can only do textiles, I can't help you with the electronics and the art. Like that's just
Okay.
leaving money
Mhm.
on the table, right?
Yeah.
So last year they highly incentivized Eversmith Brands highly incentivized the franchisees to buy all the service lines. So majority of our system now owns all the service lines, but not all of them.
Okay.
But moving forward, and this is where the re-emerging piece comes into play, if that territory has all three service lines available, again, textiles, electronics, and art, they're required to buy all of them because it
Okay.
makes no sense to not. So the
Mhm.
only exception is like, for instance, Phoenix, Arizona, somebody already owns art. So somebody can only buy textiles and electronics. But likely that our owner will want to sell eventually. And if there's
Mhm.
a Prism franchisee for textiles and electronics, it's possibly an option, right?
Mhm. Okay,
Um,
sure.
so that's why I say re-emerging, because nobody in our system up until just recently has started with all three service lines. So when I talk about investment, I'm focusing on the high side of our FDD, which is 265,000 plus. I'm one of those people I caution on the higher side than the lower side. So
Always better.
yeah. So
Yeah,
I would say 300 grand,
okay.
to kind of get up and running. But 84,000 of it is the franchise fee,
Okay.
because you're buying all the
Mhm,
service lines. That's a big chunk.
mhm,
Your big cost out the gate is in a warehouse. And so that depends on if they go small, medium, or large. If
mhm,
they go small, they are going to grow out of it quickly. So they need to be able to be in a space where they can grow into, whether it's like one of those light industrial parks where there's lots of them right in a row, and they know
mhm,
that the one next to them is empty and they can get a first right of refusal, or if they know the one next to them is going to be leaving and stuff like that,
mhm,
um, or a short-term lease that they can get out of.
mhm,
My suggestion is at least go with maybe a medium-sized space because you will grow out of it.
mhm, mhm,
But some of our franchisees have and most of them actually, I think, have two locations: the spot where they restore, and then the stuff that they move to for a warehouse space,
okay,
right?
okay,
And
yep,
so that warehouse space, because of cost of rent, is usually in the boondocks of their territory on the
mhm,
outskirts, right? Because
mhm,
who cares? As long as they have the ability, a box truck or whatever, to move the equipment around, it's
mhm,
not a big deal. And
yeah.
that kind of brings me to the fact I'm jumping off the
N
subject here.
No, no, this is all good information.
we have franchisees that have territories in multiple states, and they will get work outside of their territory if nobody else owns it, because they have created such great relationships with our national accounts. So we have a gentleman right now that owns a couple territories in California, Oregon, and Washington. He's doing a big job in New York, upstate New York right now, because we don't have a franchisee there. So Scott, you have to help me find a franchisee in upstate New York.
I'm right here in upstate New York. I got to help you find one.
Perfect.
Hmm.
So, but it's not a big deal for them,
Yeah.
because they just, now this is a commercial job, which is really more on-site work
Right.
anyways. But
Right.
even if they're in, this franchisee in Las Vegas, we don't have a franchisee in Phoenix right now for electronics or textiles. Like I said, they could go down there, bring a box truck, and if it's a residential thing or apartment building or something, like, they could do the pack out and bring it back to Vegas. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Do the
Yeah. No.
restoration and then bring it back down. We have lots of franchisees that do that. It doesn't really matter where their location is, because it's just a drive. Does
Hmm.
that make
Hmm.
sense?
No, it does. It does. So the warehouse space, it's workspace as well as storage space. Could be
Yep.
one location, could be split up into multiple locations because storage can be anywhere.
Mhm.
Sounds like you need a vehicle, a box truck to
They
transfer.
start with a box truck, yep, and that
Mhm.
will likely grow. They'll probably scale into multiple. We have a franchise that has tractor trailer trucks, right?
Oh,
So
okay. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so we have some franchisees that are big, big, big businesses.
Yeah.
Have straight up tractor trailer trucks and stuff like that. But they start with one box truck. They start with one warehouse. They start
Mhm.
with, they'll start with the equipment they need for textiles first,
Okay.
then they'll have the equipment that they need for electronics, and then the equipment that they need for art. They don't have to buy all that equipment all up front unless they want to start them all up front. We allow the franchisees to have space in between
A
before they
development
start it.
plan.
Mhm.
Okay, very
Yeah.
good. No, that's terrific. Well, thank you for giving that picture, because the investment required to get started, obviously, it's a huge part of the picture. Helps people understand if this is even a space they're going to play in. So that's very helpful for that detail. And of course, the FDD governs all, right? So all
Yep.
the details are there if somebody gets to that point. Let's talk a little bit about support and systems. What are franchisees receiving in return for their investment? Like what's the quality of the tools, the training, the ongoing support? What's the strategic value for them to be part of a franchise family instead of just going out and trying to start this on their own?
Yeah. Well, as we already started talking about, is we provide a lot of training, not only upfront for the franchisee, but for their employees. So
Mhm.
we're of course training our franchisee, but we're also training their salesperson and their technicians. And there is online training and in-person training.
Okay.
Um, from there, we continue to do training or summits. For instance, we had a summit for commercial summit in August of last year. We have another summit coming up in Utah in February. We provide these summits for our franchisees to participate in, and there are different topics. We do, of course, have a marketing department that's constantly creating content, email campaigns. There's a whole AI email stuff happening
Mhm.
now. But
Okay.
I think what my favorite thing that I love about this brand is, and I referenced this earlier, is the national accounts. So when we create national accounts, just like most franchisors, and you can't force somebody to use a vendor, right, or a
Hmm.
partner. But in most systems, like with franchise systems like ServPro and Paul Davis, they're franchises. So all we can do is create, preferred vendorship relationships, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And so we have those, but we've gone beyond that, because we have an entire national accounts team that works with all of these partners, including the insurance companies, to say, hey, let me do a presentation to this regional section of franchisees, and then let me connect you to our franchisees in your area. And
Okay.
they're doing this on a constant basis, so much that we have these vendors or these, insurance companies or these franchisees reach out. Hey, do you have a Prism franchisee near me? Who is it? Can you make the connection? Right.
Interesting.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
that is they do so much above and beyond what I've seen in my almost 19 years of franchising for their national accounts. They're actually W-2 Eversmith employees for Prism, you know, specifically working on those relationships. Does that make sense, Scott?
No, it really does. And that, what you described are the types of things that are of true, real, lasting value, right? If a person just needs to pay royalties to have a logo, but they're still kind of on their own,
Yeah.
there's a lot less value in that. Again, depending
Mhm.
on the value of that logo. But yeah, national accounts, things that lead to direct revenue, absolutely high value. Training your employees, getting them up to speed, up to a certain standard. And I'm guessing, and correct me if I'm wrong, but as new techniques are learned, as new techniques are shared, as new types of restoration techniques are perfected, do those get shared back in the online training and helping to grow everyone's knowledge?
Yes, constant. Like I
Mhm.
said, we're one of the things that makes Prism special is using forensic science to prove something's actually clean.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
we're
Mhm.
and I try not to talk too much about it because it's a real geek out situation, and I don't want to hurt anybody's brains, and I don't
Sure.
really know enough to speak to it. But it's and I mentioned something earlier, but it's this whole concept of us proving something's actually clean with forensic science, and that is something that we are creating training modules on. There's a gentleman on our team, James Copeland, that is the training guru, and he is taking all this old training and
Mhm.
redoing it all and
Okay.
revamping it and
Mhm.
updating it and stuff like that. So it's a constant situation. This is an industry that evolves, right? New
Mhm.
technology comes into place, new ways to do things more efficiently, etc. So yes, and like I said, that's where these summits keep coming up, popping up, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey, this is a need for our franchisees, etc. So let's have a 2-day summit. Let's do this and stuff. It is they're not required to do it,
Mhm.
but most will participate because they want to actually grow their businesses, right?
Yeah. And the value
So
of continuing education, right? So yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
exactly.
I
I also
Great.
like to point out we don't charge our franchisees for their training or their technicians training,
Oh,
by
okay.
the way.
Okay.
So there are some franchise systems out there that charge for training. We
Mhm.
don't. Our item 7 does have costs for training
Mhm.
expenses, but that is, travel and expense cost.
Yeah, for sure.
So for that first, now we do expect that, you're going to train new people as they come. So we train one person and then,
Mhm.
but if there is additional training needed, then there could be a cost, but up
Mhm.
front at the beginning, it's just,
It's
it's
part of the
part of the
investment you
deal.
make. Yeah.
Hmm.
Good,
Yep.
good. Well, I've loved this conversation, Jamie. There's just a couple more things I'd love to hear from you on. One is, why do you think this is a good business, right? Every business that's a good business has something about it that makes it attractive, right? Sometimes it's recurring revenue, sometimes it's high margins, strong demand, highly resilient, highly scalable, whatever. There's lots of things that can make a business a good business. What is it about Prism Specialty Restoration, in your opinion, makes it a good business for a franchisee to consider?
Well, I think I'm going to repeat myself a little bit, but
Mhm.
I really believe that Prism Specialty Restoration is meant for somebody that wants to feel good about how they make money.
Mhm.
They get to be a part of restoring somebody's, life.
Mhm.
And so they can feel good about what they're doing, but it's in an industry that can't really be replaced. It's recession resistance AI, just like we talked about, but it
Mhm.
also it's incredibly scalable, but it also gives you that work life balance, right?
Mhm.
So let's face it, a lot of candidates are kind of in that, I call it the bridge to retirement, that
Okay.
gap into
Mhm.
retirement.
Yeah.
And they are, they're having issues keeping jobs or finding jobs based on because of their age, and they're so too overqualified. Nobody wants to pay them that much anymore, but they don't want to, they don't want to be bored and just golf every day.
Mhm. Mhm.
So they want a challenge. They want to do something, that can still be fun for them. And I believe Prism Specialty Restoration will do that. Is it super simple? No, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
But it has all these other great qualities. And so if you like aspects of a business that are, have a little bit of strategy involved in it, this is that business model for somebody. So yeah, I
Love
like
it.
to joke and I say, if you're looking at senior care, because I did senior care for so long, if
Mm-hmm.
you're looking at senior care, it's usually that same person that's would be interested in Prism. It's that same
Oh,
kind of feel
interesting.
good feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, but way less employees and
With less
regulations.
employees and regulation. Okay, good. Love it. Well, Jamie, let's go to a final takeaway. What's one thing you'd like people to remember as they consider ownership of Prism Specialty and Restoration?
We restore memories that can't be replaced.
Beautiful.
Online. That's it.
Boom, right there. You
Boom.
got it.
That
That's
is
great.
my mantra. I had to do this presentation from the board out of the blue the other day, and I said that, and the lady on the board meeting is like, "Oh my gosh, that's a great tagline! Say it again." She's writing
Say
it
that
down.
again. That's great.
Yeah, but
Good
it
message,
is
though.
what it is. We restore memories that can't be replaced. We
Yeah.
put things back into order as best as
Mhm.
possible. So
Yeah. No, that's meaningful work, and I really appreciate, Jamie, you taking the time to explain it, to dive deep with me today, and hopefully we'll get some people who are trying to educate themselves on this, and we'll be meeting you in person.
I
So
love it.
that's great. So I guess my message to anybody who's listening, if anything in this spotlight today sparked your curiosity about what it might look like to be part of this specialty restoration industry, reach out to me. I'll make an introduction to Jamie, and we'll help you explore this exciting and meaningful business.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Great to be here with you.